The colony ship hierarchy had been in orbit around Lupus 9 for 3 standard months, when they decided Dr. Sarah Chen was expendable. "Your genetic markers are suboptimal," Commander Voss had said, his enhanced eyes gleaming with cold certainty. "The colony requires only the strongest specimens. You understand." Sarah understood perfectly. In the new order of humanity's expansion into the stars, the Genetic Council had determined that some humans were alphas, leaders, warriors, the genetically superior. Others were betas, workers, followers, adequate. And then there were omegas like her, deemed weak, unworthy of the resources required for interstellar colonization. They gave her a survival pack, a plasma knife, and a one-way shuttle to the surface. "Consider it mercy," Voss had added. "We could have simply jettisoned you." Now, sitting beside a crackling fire in the alien wilderness, Sarah almost laughed at the memory. Mercy. They had dumped her on a planet whose ecology they barely understood, expecting her to die within days. That had been 6 weeks ago. The forest of Lupus 9 was unlike anything in Earth's records. The trees grew in spiral formations, their bark bioluminescent in shades of amber and violet. The air was rich with oxygen, almost intoxicating. And the predators, the colonists' drones had identified them as analogous to wolves, though they were larger, with 6 legs and eyes that reflected starlight like mirrors. Sarah heard the first one approaching an hour after sunset. She didn't reach for her plasma knife. Instead, she remained still, watching as a massive creature emerged from between the spiral trees. Its fur was the color of midnight, and its intelligent eyes studied her with an intensity that suggested more than animal cunning. "Hello," she said softly, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm not here to hurt you." The creature tilted its head, and Sarah noticed the wound on its flank, a deep gash, probably from a territorial fight. Without thinking, she reached into her pack and pulled out the medical kit. The colonists had given her basic supplies, never imagining she would survive long enough to use them. "May I?" she asked, holding up the regenerative gel. The creature didn't flee. It didn't attack. It simply watched as Sarah approached slowly, hands visible, movements non-threatening. When she applied the gel to its wound, it flinched but didn't pull away. She worked quietly, efficiently, her hands steady from years of medical training that the Genetic Council had deemed irrelevant. When she finished, the creature regarded her for a long moment before releasing a low, rumbling sound that might have been approval. Then it turned and disappeared into the forest. Sarah returned to her fire, thinking nothing more of it. But the creature returned the next night, and it brought others. By the end of the first week, 5 of them came to her camp each evening. Sarah treated their wounds, removed parasites, and once even set a broken limb using a splint fashioned from branch analogs. She spoke to them constantly, her voice filling the alien night with stories of Earth, of humanity, of her own small life that had been deemed insufficient. The creatures listened, and they stayed. By the second week, the pack had grown to 12. They brought her gifts, strange fruits that turned out to be edible, the carcasses of prey animals, even stones that glowed with an inner warmth. Sarah realized they were learning from her, just as she was learning from them. They understood tool use, cooperation, even seemed to grasp the concept of medicine. "You're not just animals, are you?" she murmured one night, watching them rest around her fire. "You're people, just different." The alpha of the pack, the midnight-furred creature she'd first treated, fixed her with those mirror-bright eyes. In that gaze, Sarah saw recognition, understanding, acceptance. Things the hierarchy had never offered her. On this night, the 40th night since her abandonment, 20 wolves laid around her fire. The pack had grown as word, whatever word meant to them, spread through the forest. Sarah sat among them, her back against the alpha's warm flank, and gazed up at the stars. She knew the hierarchy was still up there. She'd seen the shuttle launches, watched them begin their descent to establish the colony on the far continent. They would build their perfect society of alphas and betas, genetically optimized and utterly superior. And they would never know what they'd lost. Because Sarah had discovered something the Genetic Council, in all their wisdom, had failed to account for. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their genes. It was in their ability to connect, to empathize, to build bridges across the vast gulf of difference. She was an omega, rejected and discarded. But here in this alien wilderness, she had become something the colonists could never be. She had become a translator between species, a healer, a friend, The wolves didn't care about her genetic markers or her designation in humanity's arbitrary hierarchy. They cared that she had stopped to help when she could have walked away. They cared that she spoke to them with respect instead of dominance. They cared that she saw them as equals. A sound split the night, a howl, long and mournful and beautiful. The alpha had raised its head, and one by one the pack joined in. 20 voices singing to the alien stars, and in their midst, Sarah added her own voice, a human note in an inhuman chorus. The song echoed through the spiral forest, carrying across the valleys and mountains of Lupus 9. In that moment, Sarah understood that she had not been abandoned. She had been freed. The colony would survive or it would fail on its own merits. But here, around this fire, surrounded by creatures that the colonists would have killed or enslaved, Sarah had built something better than survival. She had built belonging. As the howling faded and the pack settled back into comfortable rest, Sarah smiled into the darkness. Tomorrow she would continue her work. She would learn more of the wolves' language, teach them more of her own. She would explore this world not as a conqueror but as a student. And if the colonists ever ventured into this territory, they would find not a dead Omega, but a living bridge between worlds. The rejected had become the essential. The Omega had become the alpha of a new kind of pack. And around her fire 20 wolves stood guard, not over a weak human but over one of their own.